underdog. I've been through it all. I could never.
What's good, you guys? Welcome back to For the Underdogs podcast. Hope everybody out there is doing well. I'm here in Miami, Florida, with Next Chapter U, with the Next Chapter U event put on by the pro athlete community, and I got the pleasure of being joined by my man Kaleb Thornhill, who, it's crazy, we were talking about it last night. We're coming up on 10 years of knowing each other. When I was drafted to Miami, Kaleb was the director of player engagement, and I was a young kid coming into the building, and this man was and is so powerful in the things that he says and how he conveys his message. And this is an episode that I've been wanting to shoot for a long time. So I'm super grateful, and I just want to welcome you to the platform.
Thanks for having me, and I'm grateful too. You know, the moment you got drafted and the excitement of you walking through those doors, but more importantly, you know, the game, you know, guys come and go, but the relationships always meant everything to me. And you always had this smile from year to year. Yeah. Even when you was going through some dark stuff sometimes.
Some dark stuff.
Yeah, you would get serious, but you'd still have that bright smile, and you'd still find a way to push past it, man. So just to think about 10 years in a lifespan, to watch you grow as a man, as a father, as a husband, and to see you thriving every day, that's what I live for. And so I can't tell you how proud I am of you and how excited I am for what you've been doing for a lot of people, for the podcast, for the underdogs. And I can relate to underdogs. I got a story myself.
I know you can, and we're going to get into that. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate those words. That means a lot to me coming from you. As somebody who got to see me walking into those buildings as a rookie, I didn't know what I didn't know. Yep. Like we said, went through a lot of deep things, some dark times, some good times. From your point of view and your perspective at that point in time and the time you spent being a player engagement in Miami, how does it look when you see guys come through the building and you know that they're going through certain things? How does that hit your mind?
It hits my spirit, right? Like that's why I did what I chose to do, and what God called me to do was, like, he tapped me a long time ago and was like, Kaleb, you're seeing all your teammates fail after the game's over at Michigan State. Like, do something about it. And so that was the knock that I got. And player development wasn't a thing back in 2007.
Definitely.
Be very clear.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget an article dropped in ESPN about a player development that was hired. His name was Chick. He's now in the Tennessee Titans.
Yes, sir.
He was the first article to hit about player development written by ESPN. And I picked up the phone and called him. Great conversations.
Shout out to Chick, by the way.
Shout out to Chick, because he was the driver in that article. And so reverting that back to the passion, right? That's why I got so excited when you walk through the doors, or anybody, because it's like, you guys are clay. You don't know a lot, but you've been pumped up a lot. And so I felt like there was always not only clay, but like I used to show a slide, and you may not remember, that you guys are all knotted up. Yeah. And I had to untangle the pieces for you guys so you guys could be in control of your life, because I thought a lot of things were tangled up in you, that if I could get to those roots and untie them, that you'd be able to see clearly and see that path. Ooh. And so that was the exciting part, is anybody that walked through the door, knowing that they wouldn't always be ready for the information, but over time, right? Time in, time out, you're not going to get it all at once, that it would unlock something inside of them and their potential. Because on your podcast, you said it, and I remember you saying it. I was proud of you for remembering it. If the man's not right,
the player ain't going to be right. And I was just about to segue into that, because like you said, you gave us a lot of information. And I think when you're a rookie, I know when you're a rookie in that space, there's things that go in and out. You know, you don't retain some of the things until it hits you in the moment, and you're like, dang, that man said that 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever the case may be. Where did that phrase come from? And talk about your experience with that, and how you see guys transform when the man's not right, the player isn't right. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you think about that, it's an easy phrase to say. I was always big on core values and knowing who you are, right? You have to know who you are internally before the external is right. So the man being right all starts on the inside job of, like, who am I and what do I want to accomplish? See, what happens in the NFL is when you were growing up, you can't tell me that you didn't have a dream that you wrote on a piece of paper or something that you wanted to get to the NFL.
Facts.
Did you?
I said I wanted to be a professional athlete.
Okay. And you made it there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But once you're there, what I realized is that players stop dreaming. So once you're there, you've written this down, you've accomplished it, and nobody recalibrates after that moment.
100%.
So when you think about it, I was trying to stop you in your tracks to go, you've made it here, but there's some other work to do inside.
Yeah.
So you can write down what your next elevation is. But if you don't do what's on the inside and let this money, let this fame, let this fortune, let family, right, impact you, because there's all these variables that you have to control outside of your scope of you. So I knew if you got the inside right and you were making decisions based on who I am, and you've defined that the outside would be right, meaning that you'd be able to navigate relationships better. You'd be able to say no to things. You'd be able to make the sacrifices to now accomplish your next goals. Right. So when the man is right, that means an inside job, figuring out how you want to play this next game at a professional level so you can elevate, right, your career trajectory towards the goals, newly established goals and visions that you set out to. Do you want to be a starter? Yeah. You talked about that. I remember we rubbed on some of that. You want to be a starter. You weren't a starter. I want to go from practice squad to being on the 53-man roster. I want to go from there to boom. I want to be a All-Pro. Yeah. I want to be a Hall of Famer. Yeah. You've got to keep recalibrating, because most people's goals for 18 to 20 years of their life, potentially, has been to be that professional athlete. And so that's where I think the man being right, inside job, recalibrating, reframing, and go repurpose yourself for what's next.
That's interesting, because I feel like a lot of guys, and I can attest to this, a lot of guys have the experience of when ball is going well, the man is right.
Spit to him.
Man, no, for real. As opposed to like when ball is going bad,
wow,
now the man isn't right.
Wow.
What's your thoughts on that?
It's so true. And you know, it's funny, somebody just talked about that the other day of not letting their athletic success or failures dictate their temperature on a daily basis. So when I win, I'm on a high. When I'm a lose, I'm going to go into the tank, or I'm going to self-deprecate in alcohol and be angry, right? Like, so to your point about like this whole thing about athletic identity and like the successes and losses, knowing who you are and how you're going to show up and focusing on the process as opposed to the results, the end game of like what happened, you've got to learn to know who you are inside in order for that to be controlled on a daily basis. And you have to put the process in place, because at the end of the day, whether you're a Hall of Famer or a first-time rookie, you're going to go through ebbs and flows, meaning that you're going to get beat to, even if you're playing your best season, you're going to get your ass whooped one Sunday, right?
For sure.
And how to keep climbing that mountain through your process, right? That's why I'm big on routine, systems, and habits, is that when your process is buttoned up, you never waver, meaning that you go right back to that routine. So regardless if I had a bad game, I'm still up in the morning doing my morning lift. I'm studying film the same way. I'm meeting with my coaches. I'm still showing up on Tuesday. But what you do see is a lot of guys where they're more of a thermometer.
Yeah.
Where it's like
a thermostat.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Where you can control. Think about this. I told guys, the moment you decide that it's an inside job, meaning you dictate the terms of your production, your work ethic, all the things from A to Z, and you don't let the business control you. How many guys are like, man, it's some BS, man. This coach is doing this. The business, they just cut me because of that. So you're always externally facing and looking at as the victim. Yeah. Right?
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
you're putting yourself in this cell block and psychological stranglehold that you won't be able to get out of. And so that's why when we talk about inside job, it truly is controlling yourself, knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you're going to go get. Therefore, you dictate the terms of life. You don't let life dictate the terms in your mind. And so that's what's so powerful.
Yeah, that's real. The internal, starting with that internal first and not allowing the external things to factor into you, I think is probably something that, I mean, I ended up learning that within my career, and even post-career, that's still a huge focus of mine. What drives you, Kaleb? Like, from a standpoint of like, Kaleb, you're one of one in my eyes. Like, you don't waver, at least from what I've seen. Now, I'm sure you have your battles and your things. Yeah, we all do. But the Kaleb that I know from 2015 is still the Kaleb that I know, a better version in 2025. So what drives Kaleb Thornhill? What is that thing that wakes you up every morning and allows you to be authentically you?
I think, number one, my faith in Jesus Christ. And that's, for me, where I get my superpower from. I believe he gave us every answer to the test within that book. And I think there's a lot of leadership books that are written out there, or self-help, or many other things that people take from that and reframe it. So that's number one. Number two, there's a life experience that happened to me when my father passed away in 2006. That was the hardest moment of my life, to lose my best friend and what I believe my model in how to live life passionately and be a great father and husband. And 21 years old, playing at Michigan State, I was going to be done playing. I was going to hang it up going into my senior year. It was right before Christmas. We were supposed to go visit his family in Virginia. And in that moment, I was like, I'm done playing ball. And I went down a dark path, with drinking and doing the wrong things and trying to just mask the pain I was feeling. And that was hard. And then one day I got a call from Coach D. Coach D'Antonio was at Michigan State. He was a new head coach. And this is what really changed my life. He was a pivotal call. He says, Kaleb, I know your father passed away. You wear number 43 right now. It's like, what do you think about changing your number to 41 to honor your father this last year? Slip into his journey, his legacy, and wear it one more time. And in that moment, I mean, I hung up the phone and I'm like, I can't believe the call came like that. And I can't believe that I finally understand that my father may be done writing his chapters of his book, but there's a new page and I got to pick up the pen and continue his legacy. That was the moment that changed everything. And I wore that 41. I had the best year of my life. I felt his spirit with me. I felt a rejuvenation. I felt I had a responsibility that was bigger than myself. And from that moment on, I never looked back. And when you talk about what motivates me, when my father got stopped in the store when he was shopping and people would turn to him and said how much they mean to him because he worked in a juvenile detention center or Oldsmobile, the impact he had on people's life, I was listening to my whole life, but it finally became like a real thing when he was gone, reflecting back on how many lives he's changed. And I was like, man, I just want to continue that. It was in my heart. It was in my spirit. And I do it, for him. And now my family, that they have a father, and I try to take every moment, every day as precious, because I lost him suddenly. There was no preparation. Yeah. And I just want to make sure that everybody can feel that too and live their life to the fullest and whatever they want their legacy to be. Man,
that's real. I could tell that means a lot to you, and that gives you that purpose to keep being who you are. So I appreciate you sharing that, and it was a good way to kind of segue into this vulnerability piece that we had spoken about when kind of making this thing come to life. What does vulnerability, what has it done for you? Because I feel like just the nature of the business that I came up in with the NFL, it was almost hard for me to tap into that until post-career, when I was no longer walking amongst the alphas of that business. It's like, okay, I need to let my guard down and just and be me and be true to who I am. Right. So what is vulnerability? What has it done for you, and what exactly is it in your terms? Yeah,
that's a great question. Yeah. I think everybody has their own journey, but Brene Brown, if you haven't read her book, she talks about vulnerability a lot. And what is it to me is like, I could tell you what weakness is. You know, like the inability to withstand attack or wounding, right? Something that hurts. Weakness is the inability to withstand attack or wounding. Vulnerability is the ability to withstand that, right? Meaning that vulnerability, you're unlocking, you're saying, I want to be healed, so I'm going to tell you these things, right? So if somebody is telling you something about themselves, they're willing to open up to be healed. The ability to withstand attack or wounding is being vulnerable. That's what we can get healed up. It's like an open wound, right?
Yeah.
Weakness, the inability to solve that causes a what? If I have an open wound, what happens?
Yeah, it bleeds. I mean,
and then what?
Well, like
infection.
Okay.
And it goes through the entire body. Meaning like open wounds, if not healed, if not talked about, will infect your entire body. So the things that we're masking, that we try to suppress, those are open wounds. And so what I learned very early on with my father, I told you, I had an open wound.
Yeah.
I had a wide open wound that I was suppressing, and it was getting infected. It was left open. I didn't want to get help. There was a lot of things within that journey besides the call, but like I didn't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do any of that. I was in too much pain.
Yeah.
And so for me, vulnerability is the ability to be open so you can get healed up and sutured up so you can be back to your full self.
That's real.
Where that's just kind of what it means to me, though.
Yeah. That's real. I think a lot of times as men, and I'm sure it's people, we tend to not want to talk about the things that have hurt us the most. And I've found a lot of superpower or strength, whatever you want to call it, in actually processing those things that have happened to me and being able to, I guess, if you want to say, come to terms with some of the things in a healthy form of fashion. I think that instead of walking around all day bent up over this thing, like I gotta talk about it. I need to vent, because once I can get it out, now I can start that process of healing, you know? So I think that's super powerful. You said something in Arizona that I wrote down, and it was basically centered around leaving the game with peace. And we can call a spade a spade. I think a lot of guys don't leave the game with peace. I was one of them. So I can speak on that. And I had a lot of regret. I had a lot of frustration around my journey. I'm not in that space anymore because I've now appreciated the process and where it's gotten me. What does leaving the game with peace look like? I know it's different for everyone based on the situation, but can you just explain what that would look like?
I think it's leaving the game the way, when you think about your journey, physically, emotionally, psychologically, when you're in a place where you feel comfortable saying goodbye to something, because my wish for everybody, I told you this, is to not live with resent or regret. If I can still play and still want to, right? And I have the ability to, that they don't leave it too early. Some guys need to close their chapters by going to the XFL to get one last thing, even if it's not in the NFL. Some guys will need to hit a practice squad. Some guys can walk away on their own terms and say, I'm good, because they've measured and calculated each one of those.
Right.
Everybody's piece is going to look a little bit different. But my prayer for everybody is to have that peace in their mind, that they can lay this to rest, and that, you know, I always call it a divorce, because it's like you were dating in high school, maybe even earlier, football. You got engaged in college, and then you got married when you got to the NFL.
Married to the game.
And ultimately, you know, it's a dead-end divorce, right? Like, it's going to happen, but that divorce, I want it to be as peaceful as possible. There's a reconciliation with yourself and others around you that you're walking away. Because I think some people's journey is different. Like I was saying, some people have family pressure to continue to play. They don't want to let people down. Sometimes it's, you know, I've had guys before tell me that their parent says, you better not stop playing. And gotten arguments with their mom and had to, like, stop talking with them because of the pressure, because their identity is tied to the game of football,
Yeah.
not necessarily the human being anymore. They get caught up in this without even realizing it, and then the world puts them in a stranglehold. So when I say peace, I'm talking about holistically. There's a lot of other variables besides the individual. Obviously, you got to come to terms with yourself, but you got to come to terms with everybody else too, and be comfortable communicating that.
That's big right there. And that's kind of what I feel like PAC has created with these opportunities that you guys are giving out. I want to talk about PAC and what it's done for you and what it's done for a lot of guys. We spoke a little bit last night downstairs just on, I think when guys get out of the game, they don't necessarily miss playing the game, but they miss the atmosphere, the locker rooms, the training tables, the training rooms where you're just joking around with the guys and able, like, you can't find that anywhere else besides here with PAC when you guys put on these events. So I want to get that input on what PAC has meant to you, and also your interpretation on what it's done for guys post-career.
PAC, I mean, that's a loaded question that you just asked me.
It is.
And it means so much to me, and I'm so proud of you in particular.
Thank you.
This is what means a lot to me, is what you're doing right now.
Thank you.
And what you're doing for your family and what you're doing for the people listening and their stories to unlock something in somebody. It means everything to me to put people in a position to be successful for the rest of their lives, not just a short portion of their lives. That's what it means to me. And now going backward, the inception of it was guys like yourself, guys that imagine this, like, imagine if I'm doing all this teaching and not one person turned the corner on stress management or financial education or leadership or going over the simplest things of nutrition, right? If nobody was turning the corner in their life and really getting the information they needed and turning it into application, it would be tough for me to believe that this could change somebody's life. And so respect to the players that have played the game and sacrificed so much to be at a high level and constant improvement, that listen to me eventually, even though it may take time. It may take years. It may take months.
Sure.
You never know.
For sure.
But there's so much credit there because you guys made me believe. And then the thing that really switched it for me is when we brought 4 guys to Miami. When I had this idea that, you know, transitioning out of the game didn't have to be as painful as I had seen it in the texts I'd received and the calls I'd received. I was in Miami Dolphins as the director of player engagement. So I was trying to develop you while also getting calls from other guys that played struggling. Right? Real. Struggling That's deeply. Real. And I'm talking about some deep stuff that, you know, I don't need to say. That I wanted to get them help, but you only have so much time. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take the bye week. I'm not going on vacation like everybody does. I'm going to bring guys down and we're going to go through a transition program together. We carved out this, 3 days in person, 12 weeks virtually. And this was in 2018 where I'm like, let's pilot this. When I tell you from that cohort, the stories between losing weight, right, a lot, getting your life back in order, between increasing income to support family in a meaningful way, to somebody not getting a divorce because they chose to come, which they were on the verge of, to somebody writing a letter to their father, forgiving him for everything he'd seen growing up and the way that he treated his mom.
Wow.
Forgiveness. When I saw the stories of what it could do, I knew at that point, this was how God was like showing me, go do this. I didn't know when. And I was waiting for the right time. And I got that tap in the shoulder in 2022 saying it's time. And I don't get signs very often from God, but this was speaking so loud I couldn't turn the volume down.
What does that feel like when you get that tap on the shoulder?
Honestly, I don't get it all the time. So I knew in 2022 in January, the messaging that I was getting in my head was, Kaleb, after this business combine that you're going to do for Miami, there's going to be something else down the road. Now, I didn't know what that was going to be. I was just listening. I said, please unveil this to me. Please make it clear. Make it crystal clear. And there was multiple decisions that I had to make. And there was multiple variables in this story that I could have went to go to another team, et cetera. But like at that moment, I'll never forget when it was over, Jason McCourty, the last day, gets on stage and says, in my 13 years of playing in the NFL, I've learned more in these 3 days that we're here together than in my 13-year NFL career. Jason McCourty.
Yeah.
When he said that on stage, that was another sign.
Yeah.
Because I go, if Jason McCourty, who's buttoned up, who's done everything the right way, and in 3 days, he's learned more than he has in his 13-year NFL career. I said, if I don't leave and do this, how many other guys are going to be in the situation like him? And at that moment, Chip was at that business combine speaking for the first time, moderating, panel. He calls me after the combine. He was like, I don't know what I need to do, but this is a space I belong into. Do you want to go create something special? Whew.
You were in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I knew. And that was a sign from God. I asked him to make it clear, and there were so many signs.
Yeah. That's
and
awesome.
here we are,
man,
with stories upon stories in a community that believes in one another, that celebrates together, that's on the same team, a team they'll never be cut from again in their life. Working together, it doesn't matter where it is. We always do the inside job first. It doesn't change. Yeah. There's a reason we have all the performance coaches, and the types of people we bring in are from my value system, from our value system. And so to see so many guys taking the information that they've received and applying it and to share it, because you talk about invest, cultivate, elevate. Invest in yourself, cultivate meaningful relationships, and elevate your life and those around you. Yeah. Invest, cultivate, elevate. So to see so many guys do that and to see our community do that for one another is the most powerful thing I've ever experienced in my life. I'm so glad to see people win beyond the game and to find the peace, to find the joy, to find the happiness, to find the thrill again, to climb the next mountain again. Yeah. There's nothing like it.
Man, the impact is felt, and you were meant for something like this. Like this is your lane. This is Kaleb Thornhill in my eyes. Like I know that you're going to be associated with something great every time that you put, your name on it. So I appreciate you even considering me for this. It's been a great opportunity. I want to ask you before we take off, what's the best piece of advice that you've gotten or that you can give? What is it? And take your time.
Yeah, it's a great question. And we'll go back to my father, and I just put a post up, and I try not to get emotional. I cry probably 5 times a year, and it's usually around my father. April 1st was his birthday. His heavenly birthday. And I put a post out there, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. My father taught me that. What he meant by that is treat people, regardless if they're the CEO or the janitor, with respect, with dignity, and don't ever put anybody on a pedestal. Don't ever make anybody your idol. And that always stuck with me. And so the way I show up and treat people, that was the best piece of advice I could have ever gotten. I love people. I think they're special, and I think everybody has some magical side of them. So that piece right there always stuck with me, is everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. And you know what's funny about that is in 2010, when I was interviewing for the Miami Dolphins, I'll never forget this. I flew down from Detroit. Yeah. They had brought me down for a second interview, and I'm going around, and Jeff Ireland is getting ready to walk me to Bill Parcells' office. So we're walking together in the hallway, and he stops me before we get to the door. He says, "Hey, do you need to use the bathroom? Get a drink of water? Are you nervous?" That's what he's basically telling me. And I was like, "No, I'm good." And the only thing I could remember, because Bill Parcells is a Hall of Famer,
100%.
Great stature, an idol in the football world, is, Kaleb, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. It's the last thing I said before I walked into his office. In a conversation that changed my life forever. That as soon as I got done talking to him, GM pulls me back in and hires me as the director of player engagement for the Miami Dolphins.
Let's go.
And that's how I meet Jamil.
Yeah.
And many others.
Yeah.
That we walked life together. We did life together beyond the lines. And to watch that and the successes you guys have had, you have in this podcast, the impact, like I said, it goes back to, man, I just want to see people win in every area of their life. And so it's kind of cool how that one quote that my father taught me and that philosophy led me to so many relationships that I got to do the same thing my dad did. Yeah. Pretty cool.
That's dope, man. It stands true. And like I said, man, I'm super grateful for our relationship. 10 years is a long time, especially given the nature of the business we met each other in. So I'm always appreciative of you and what you stand for and how you go about your business. And I can't thank you enough for stopping on the podcast, man. This has been great. This has been something that I wanted to shoot with you for a long time. So, man, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everything you do. I just want to give you your flowers in that moment.
For the underdogs, baby. I love it. Great. I appreciate you for real. And wish you the most success, and we're going to stay connected forever. 10 years ain't nothing.
Absolutely.
I'm ready to do another 40.
Yeah, facts.
And then I'm gone.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Much love.
Sir. Yeah.
Yeah, for the underdogs, I'm an underdog.